The room smelled of blood and crushed flowers, sweet and metallic, as if life and death had been ground together under the same heel. Eddard Stark knelt beside the bed, his hand wrapped around Lyanna Stark's fingers, feeling them grow colder with every shallow, rattling breath she took. Her hair, dark and damp with sweat, stuck to her pale brow. The bedclothes were soaked crimson between her thighs, and the roses someone had once strewn there were brown and limp, petals clinging wetly to the sheets. "Promise me, Ned," she whispered, lips cracked, eyes bright with fever and something more desperate than fear. "Please, promise me." "I have," he said, though his voice sounded far away, hollow even to his own ears. "I swear it, Lya, on the old gods and the new. No harm will come to him." Her gaze wavered, like a candle guttering in a draught. "Not just harm," she murmured. Not their judgment. They will call him monster, abomination, son of a prince and a traitor. They will kill him for what he is." Eddard's jaw clenched. The child's cries filled the chamber, thin and insistent. The maester who had attended her lay slumped in a corner, spent and useless, his face gray with helplessness. Outside the tower, beyond the broken hills, the bodies of men he had once admired cooled under the gathering dusk. Ser Arthur Dayne, Lord Gerald Hightower, men who had followed a mad prince into ruin. He had killed them to reach this room. He would carry that weight to his grave. "He will have my name," Eddard said. "He will be my bastard. I will raise him at Winterfell." Lyanna's fingers tightened weakly around his. "Your honor," she croaked. Robert's rage, his hate for Targaryens. "You think you can shield the boy from that? From the lions, from all of them? They will smell dragon on him." Eddard opened his mouth to protest, but the door groaned then, and the air shifted with an unfamiliar heat. He turned sharply, reaching for a sword that was no longer at his hip. A stranger stood in the doorway, framed by moonlight and the faint shimmer of rising steam. The man's robes were the color of drying blood, edged in black and gold, heavy for this warm southern night. His hair was shaved close to his scalp, his skin the dark brown of men from far-off Associ ports. Around his neck hung a chain of twisted metal, and at its center glowed a dim, ember-like stone. "Lord Eddard Stark," the man said in a low, accented voice, "I come at the end of a long road. The flames do not lie. I am here for the child." Ned rose, placing himself between the bed and the doorway. His hand found the dagger at his belt instead, knuckles whitening around the hilt. "And who in the seven hells are you?" he demanded. "What right do you have to enter this place?" The stranger bowed his head slightly, though his eyes never left Eddard's. They were strange eyes, too bright, reflecting the flicker of the single candle in the room as though a second fire danced within his pupils. "I am Maeryn of Asshai, priest of R'hllor, the Lord of Light," he said. "I follow visions burned into my sight by sacred flame. For 10 years I have traced them across the eastern world. All of them end here in this tower with that child." Lyanna stirred, her gaze sliding toward the priest. "Ned?" she whispered, fear and something like recognition tangled in her voice. He came to me in dreams, the man of fire. I saw him walk through the snow with our child in his arms." Ned swallowed hard, throat tight. "You are fevered," he said, but his voice wavered. The priest's gaze shifted past Eddard to the bed. He moved neither quickly nor slow, simply stepping into the room with the certainty of a man who had already seen each heartbeat that would follow. "The night is dark and full of terrors," Maeryn said softly, eyes on Lyanna. "But the Lord of Light shows us truths buried in shadow. I saw you, lady. I saw your death. I saw the child of ice and fire born in a tower of blood and stone. If he remains in this land, he dies young and the world dies with him." Eddard's nostrils flared. "You speak treason and madness," he snarled. "One more step and I will spill your blood where you stand." Lyanna coughed, a ragged, wet sound. "Ned," she gasped. "Listen to him." He turned, and the look in her eyes silenced him more effectively than any blade. There was no fever there now, no delirium. Only grim resolve, the same stubborn light he had seen when she had ridden races in Winterfell's courtyard or argued with father over suitors she would not take. "I dreamt it," she said, again and again, a darkness swallowing the world. A cold so deep the flames themselves shivered, dead things walking, and above them, a boy with our blood, burning like a star. They feared him, they hunted him, they killed him before his fire could grow. Her fingers clawed weakly at the sheets. "Promise me you will keep him safe," she whispered, "whatever it costs, whatever you must do to your honor." Eddard felt something inside him twist, tearing along lines he had always believed unbreakable. His honor was his father's stern face, the words of the old gods whispered among the heart trees, the weight of oaths he had never thought he might betray. It was Winterfell and the North and the man he believed himself to be. Yet here, in this tower, his honor had already dragged him into slaughter. The Kingsguard lay dead because he would not yield. His sister lay dying because a prince had followed his own scorched vision of Rite. Where had honor been for her? Maeryn stepped closer, stopping a sword's length away. The faint glow at his throat brightened, throwing his features into sharper relief. His skin bore faint, shiny scars, as if he had been burned long ago and healed without proper salve. "If he remains here," the priest said quietly, "your friend the new king will learn what he is. The lions will learn. They will put his head on a spike over their walls and call it justice. The darkness I have seen in the flames will come all the same, but without the one light that might have stood against it." Lyanna's hand groped for Eddard's. He caught it, pressed it to his lips. The heat of her skin was fading fast. "Ned," she croaked, "if he must go, let him go far. Let him live. Promise me that you will not chain him to your honor if it means his death." He closed his eyes. In his mind he saw Robert Baratheon laughing with a sword in hand, boasting of dragons slain and maidens won. He saw a throne of swords in a city he did not trust. He saw a child in his arms, dark-haired, gray-eyed, with the blood of dragon and wolf in his veins. The dagger's weight at his belt seemed suddenly meaningless. "What would you do with him?" Eddard asked, voice low as the grave. "Priest, if I let you take him, if I break every vow I ever swore." Maeryn held his gaze. "Raise him where no lord's banner flies," he said. "Teach him the language of fire and the patience of stone. Train him to see what is hidden and to refuse what the flames demand when they grow hungry for innocence. I cannot say he will live, only that he will have a chance to become what he must." Lyanna exhaled slowly, as if that promise alone had eased her pain. "Ned," she breathed, "please, let him go. For me, for him." Eddard Stark stood between the dying and the unknown and felt the ice of the north crack beneath his feet. Then slowly he nodded. Eddard moved to the cradle, a makeshift thing fashioned from a travel chest and folded cloaks. The child lay there, fists flailing, face screwed up in outrage at the cold and the air and the great loud world he had just entered. His hair was already thick for a newborn, dark and damp. His eyes, when they flashed open, were a deep, stormy gray that hurt Ned's heart to look upon. Lyanna's eyes. He drew his knife with hands that did not quite feel like his own and, as gently as if he were cutting a maiden's ribbon, snipped a lock of that black hair. He wound it carefully in a scrap of linen and tucked it into his doublet, over his heart. "What will you call him?" Maeryn asked quietly. Eddard thought of the names Lyanna might have chosen. Rhaegar's son, though the name tasted bitter now, tainted by kidnappings and crowns of rubies stained with other men's blood. He thought of the north, of the simple, solid names there, Brandon, Ricard, Benjen. "He is my sister's son," he said, "and he will have both our worlds in him. But if he must be hidden, better he bear a name that means nothing to your enemies. Call him what you will in your temples. I will remember him as Jon." Lyanna's lips curved faintly. "Jon," she repeated as if tasting it. "Jon." Maeryn inclined his head. "In Volantis," he said. We will write him as Jaehaer. It sounds less northern to ears that might listen. But names are masks. The flame sees through them. Eddard bristled at the thought of his nephew's name being bent to suit some foreign tongue. But Lyanna's fingers twitched, reaching. He carried the child to her. She placed a trembling hand on the tiny chest, feeling the frantic bird-quick beat of the heart beneath. "My little wolf," she whispered, tears slipping from the corners of her eyes. "My little dragon, forgive me." The baby's cries softened, as if soothed by her voice, by a scent he already knew. For a few heartbeats the world narrowed to the three of them, bound in blood and breath and pain. Then Lyanna's hand fell away. The quiet that followed was more terrible than any scream. Eddard bowed over her, shoulders shaking once, hard, but he swallowed his grief down like broken glass. There would be time to mourn when the living were safe. He laid the child gently back in Maeryn's arms. "If I ever learn that you have harmed him," Ned said, his voice rough. "If word reaches me that you have burned him for your fires or thrown him to some demon you worship." Maeryn shook his head. "Lawler asks for many things," he said, "but the fire that sleeps in this boy will not be wasted on a pyre. On that you have my oath, Lord Stark, by the light and by the shadows beyond it." They left the tower before the sun properly rose. Outside, the air was cold and thin, the sky paling from black to gray. The dead lay where they had fallen, steel glinting dully on the stones. Maeryn did not look at them. His attention remained on the infant in his arms, murmuring in a language Ned did not know. At the foot of the hill, Howland Reed waited with the horses, his narrow face tense. His eyes flicked from Eddard's drawn expression to the bundle in the priest's arms, to the tower behind them. "Lysa?" he asked softly. "Gone," Ned said. The word scraped his throat raw. "This is her son." Reed swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. "And the priest? A madman from the east," Ned said. "Or a prophet. It makes no difference. He is the only path she saw for the boy." He forced himself to meet Reed's eyes. "She made me promise." Reed, Cranigman and mystic in his own quiet right, looked at Maeryn for a long time. Then he nodded once, as if recognizing some shape in the man that other eyes could not. "The marsh has its own gods," Reed murmured, "but all gods love their secrets. If this is what she asked of you, then do it, my lord. We will raise the tale as we must. No one need know what blood was spilled in that tower." Eddard watched as Maeryn mounted a spare horse, cradling the child against his chest. For an instant, panic surged through him, an impulse to snatch the boy back, to defy prophecy and gods and kings alike. He did not move. Instead, he stepped forward, laid a calloused hand briefly on the baby's tiny head. "Live," he whispered, "wherever you go, whatever you become, live." Then Maeryn turned his horse east, toward the distant glitter of the narrow sea, and rode away with Eddard Stark's last hope and greatest betrayal in his arms. The great red temple of Volantis rose like a mountain of stone and fire above the city, its towers stabbing at the sky, its windows spilling warm orange light into the night. The shadow of its great statue, half man, half dancing flame, fell across the smoky river and the clustered hovels of the eastern bank, a long dark hand reaching for the sea. Inside, the air was always warm, even in the depth of winter. Smoke curled from dozens of braziers, coiling around carved pillars and painted ceilings. The stone beneath bare feet was smooth and faintly heated, as though the temple's foundation drank flame like water. Jaehaer stood among the other novices with his hands folded in front of him, eyes fixed on the central altar where a cow was being led to its final rest. The animal's eyes rolled white, its hooves clattering nervously on the stone. Red-robed priests circled it, chanting in harsh, flowing Valyrian, their voices rising and falling like wind over coals. He tried not to stare at the knife. "Watch, little flame," whispered the boy beside him in accented common tongue. Benerro, older by 3 years and smug with the authority that age granted, smirked. "If you look away, they will think your heart is weak." Jaehaer's jaw tightened. "My heart is not weak," he said. The words came easily now. He spoke 2 tongues as if born to them, and had begun learning a 3rd from a Lycian scribe. The priests were proud of that. Yes, Benerro nudged him. Then don't blink. The knife flashed down. Blood spilled black in the temple's ruddy light, steaming as it struck the heated stone. The cow shuddered, then went still. The smell, rich, hot, metallic, rushed up Jaehaer's nose. He thought of crimson sheets, of a woman's soft hand on his chest, of a man's cold voice promising fire and safety. He did not know if those were memories or dreams. He did not look away. As the chant swelled, the high priest dipped his hands in the blood and smeared it in careful sigils across the cow's flank, then lifted a dripping palm toward the towering statue overhead. "Lord of Light," he intoned, voice booming in the cavernous space. "Drink deep, see what we offer and show us what is to come. In your fire our eyes are opened. Let us see." The brazier's flames leapt higher, fed by some hidden bellows or trick of fuel. The heat washed over Jaehaer's face, pricking his skin, stinging his eyes. Around him, the other novices watched with a mixture of awe and hunger. Visions were status. Visions were power. To see in the flames was to matter. Jaehaer had seen in the flames since before he could speak. He squeezed his eyes shut for a heartbeat, then opened them again, letting the fire fill his gaze. At first it was only color and motion, the familiar dance. Then shapes began to form, as they always did when he let himself fall into the warmth. Snow he saw, endless and white, swirling under a sky the color of iron. A wall of ice rising higher than any tower in Volantis, so vast it vanished into the mist. Men in black standing atop it, tiny as ants. And wolves, a pack of gray dire wolves racing across a frozen field, their paws throwing up powder. One turned its head, and its eyes met his through the flames, pale, wise, and impossibly sad. A knife of cold slid down his spine, so sharp it almost broke his trance. The flames roared higher, obscuring the vision, then shifted. For a heartbeat he thought he saw a darker shape behind the wolves, something vast and winged, eyes like burning coals. He blinked and the image shattered. Smoke stung his nostrils. His heart hammered in his chest. "What did you see?" a voice murmured near his ear. Jaehaer flinched. He had not heard the high priest approach, Benerro the elder, not the boy, his heavy robes embroidered with suns and tongues of flame. The man's face was lined, his beard shot with gray, but his eyes burned like coals, bright and assessing. "Snow," Jaehaer answered, because to lie about a vision was to tempt punishment. A wall of ice, men in black, wolves. The high priest's fingers closed around his shoulder, strong and bony. "Again," he said. "Look again." Jaehaer obeyed. The flames filled his world once more, their heat pressing against his skin like a hand. He let his breath slow, let the background murmur of chants fade. This time the snow did not come. Instead, the fire twisted into spirals, coils, the suggestion of scales. A single vast eye opened in the depths, slit-pupiled and molten gold. It regarded him with an intelligence that made his chest ache. He saw towers of black stone sinking into a sea of smoke. Bridges of carved rock snapped like twigs as molten rivers swallowed them. The sky split with red light, and dragons screamed, more than he could count. Wings tearing at the air, claws scraping uselessly at collapsing cities. Then all at once there was silence. A single shape emerged from the ruin. A dragon unlike the others, darker, larger. Its scales glossy as obsidian and veined with faint, glowing red. It coiled itself among broken pillars and closed its eyes. "Valyria," Jaehaer whispered before he could stop himself. The word was unfamiliar, and yet it rolled off his tongue as if he had spoken it all his life. The high priest sucked in a breath. His fingers tightened. "Who taught you that word?" he demanded. Jaehaer tore his gaze from the flames. The world felt thinner now, too bright, as though he had stepped from deep water into harsh sun. The other novices were still watching the altar, entranced by the ceremony, oblivious to the exchange in the shadows. "No one," he said. "I just knew. The fire," he faltered. He did not have words for the way certain sounds came to him in dreams, for the way places he had never seen tasted on his tongue like old memories. Benerro studied him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. "The doom," he said, "the corpse of an empire that thought itself eternal. You saw its fall and what sleeps in its ashes. Good. The flame shows you far places." Jaehaer swallowed. His throat was dry. "Why?" he asked before caution could bind his tongue. "Why does the fire show me those things? I am only a boy." The high priest's gaze shifted briefly toward the great statue looming over them, then back. "No one is only anything," he said. "The Lord of Light chose you before ever you drew breath. He sends us his instruments in strange shapes. Once a simple slave, once a bastard prince, once—" His lips thinned. "Now perhaps a boy from a tower far from here." Something stirred under Jaehaer's breastbone. Resentment, fear, a sudden fierce curiosity. "From where?" he asked. But Benerro had already released his shoulder. He stepped away, his robe whispering over the warm stone. "When the flame wishes you to know, you will know," he said. "Until then, remember this. You are not like the others. The fire loves you, and what the fire loves, it burns." The trials began when Jaehaer reached his 7th year. By then, he had outgrown the thin, sickly frame of his infancy. He was still slight, wiry rather than broad, but there was a stubborn solidity to him, a way he held himself that hinted at some northern hill fort he had never seen. His hair lay in dark waves to his shoulders, his skin only lightly browned by the Volantine sun. His eyes remained gray, a color that none of the other novices shared. They whispered about that when they thought he was not listening. Gray eyes meant storms at sea, some said. Gray eyes meant strangers' blood. Gray eyes meant danger. The priests did not try to correct them. On the day of the first trial, they led the novices into a long chamber whose floor had been hollowed into shallow pits. Coals lay heaped in the depressions, glowing a dull red, thin tendrils of smoke leaking upward. The air shivered with heat. "Today," said Maeryn, the same priest who had carried him from the tower, now older and more lined but still watching Jaehaer with a peculiar, guarded gentleness. "You will learn what it means to trust the Lord of Light." He gestured. A pair of acolytes brought a metal rake, dragged it slowly through the coals, spreading them in an even path from one end of the room to the other. The embers brightened as they were exposed to air, exhaling little gusts of heat that licked at bare ankles. "You will walk," Maeryn said, "from this end to that. Do not run. Do not cry out. If you falter, the burns you take are your own weakness made flesh." Benerro stood at his side, eyes unreadable. "Lawler is flame and shadow," he said. "You cannot serve him if you fear his first face." The first novice to step forward was a boy of Volantine stock, taller than Jaehaer, with quick dark eyes and a cruel smile. He strode onto the coals with bravado, teeth bared. By the third step, his cockiness had fled. By the fifth, his face twisted in agony, and a strangled yelp escaped him. He stumbled, nearly fell. The smell of burning flesh wafted thick and nauseating through the room. He made it across, but when he stepped off the path his feet were blistered, skin peeling. He collapsed, sobbing. The next boy saw and hesitated. That earned him a cuff across the back of the head. When Jaehaer's turn came, he stood at the edge of the glowing path and stared down into it. The coals pulsed like 1,000 sleeping hearts. Heat radiated upward, prickling his calves and thighs. He could feel Maeryn's gaze on him. Feel something else, too. A hum in the air, a subtle pressure from the braziers lining the walls, as if the flames themselves leaned forward in anticipation. He thought of wolves running across snow that burned like this, of towers of black stone crumbling, of a woman's voice telling him to live. Then he stepped forward. The first touch of coal against his bare soul was like a bite. Pain flared, sharp and instant. It would have been easy to leap into the arms of that pain, to let it drag him down into animal panic. He did not. He breathed in, tasted smoke, and imagined a river of ice running through his veins, cooling the blood. One step, then another. The coals hissed and shifted under his weight. Heat licked at him, but he refused to tear his feet away. By the time he reached the center of the path, sweat ran down his spine, soaking the back of his thin robe. Each step felt like pressing his flesh against a brand. The chamber wavered at the edges of his vision. He fixed his eyes on the far end of the room, on nothing, on emptiness, on the space where pain would stop, and walked. When he stepped off the coals at last, the stone felt almost cool against his scorched-feeling skin. His legs shook. He did not realize he had been holding his breath until he exhaled in a harsh gasp. He dared a glance down. His feet were red, flushed from heat, but not burned. No blisters bubbled up. No skin hung in ragged, peeling strips. For a moment he thought his eyes deceived him. Maeryn was suddenly there, kneeling, catching his ankle in careful hands. His fingers were calloused, his expression intent. "Hold still," the priest murmured. He turned Jaehaer's foot to the light, tracing the arch, the ball, the heel. The warmth of his touch was almost gentle. His brows drew together as he found nothing more than faint, quickly fading redness. Benerro approached, robes whispering across the stone. The other novices watched with open mouths. The boy who had strutted first sat on a bench, feet bandaged, eyes gleaming with a mixture of jealousy and fear. "Well?" the high priest asked. Maeryn looked up slowly. His face was composed, but his eyes burned brighter now, reflecting the brazier's flames. "He walked as the others did," he said. "Longer even. Yet." He released Jaehaer's foot, letting it drop gently back to the stone. The fire kissed him. It did not claim him. Benerro's lips pressed into a thin line. "We have seen this before," he said. "With those touched deep, it does not mean he cannot burn. Only that he must be tested harder." Jaehaer's heart lurched. Tested harder. The phrase tasted like ash. "Why?" he asked, surprising himself. It was dangerous to question the high priest, but the word burst from him before he could swallow it. "Why must I be tested harder than the others? Did I ask for this?" Benerro regarded him curiously. Did the fire ask to burn when the first men struck flint? He countered. Did the sea ask to drown ships, or the wind to topple towers? "You are what you are, boy. The flames favor you. That gift is not for your comfort. It is for your use." In the distance, a bell tolled, marking the hour of mid-morning prayer. The novices began to shuffle, some limping, some leaning on others. Jaehaer flexed his toes experimentally. The initial sting had faded to a faint throb, like the aftermath of a long run. Maeryn rose to his feet. For a heartbeat, as Benerro turned away, he allowed the mask of priestly composure to slip. The look that crossed his face was not pride, nor hunger, but something like sorrow. "You did well," he said quietly in the common tongue, his accent a rough echo of some northern cadence. "But remember what the high priest said. The fire that does not burn you will draw notice, from men and from other things. Be wary." Jaehaer studied him. "Other things?" he asked. Maeryn's gaze flicked toward the nearest brazier. The flames within it seemed to twist, forming a shape almost like a hand reaching upward. "There are shadows that love the flame," he said, "and shadows that hate it. Both will be drawn to you." He rested a hand briefly on Jaehaer's shoulder, then moved away to tend to the burned novices. Jaehaer remained standing, alone at the end of the ember path, feeling the heat fade under his soles and wondering if he had won something today or only lost the illusion that he could ever be as ordinary as the boys around him. Years rolled over the temple like tides. Novices came and went. Some failed their trials and were sent to lesser duties, stoking braziers and sweeping ash. Some were given red robes, the chain of twisted metal, the authority to call others to the fires. Jaehaer grew taller, his shoulders broadening. his features sharpening into something that made serving girls in the district glance twice before remembering his robes. His hair darkened to a deeper black, contrasting the pale scar that crossed the back of his right hand. A reminder of a trial with real flame that had gone just a little too far. It had healed without infection. The priests had called that a sign too. By his 15th year, he was permitted to lead lesser prayers, to intone the memorized invocations in flowing Valyrian, to stand before the great brazier of the main hall and pretend that the heat did not still, sometimes, frighten him. It was in that year that she arrived. They called her Elyra, though Jaehaer suspected that was not the name she had been born with. She came from the east, from Asshai, where the shadows were longer and the stories darker than any Volantis liked to admit. Her hair, what of it could be seen beneath her hood, was the color of burnished copper. Her eyes were pale, almost colorless, rimmed with faint shadows as if she had not slept in a long time. When she first walked into the main hall, the flames in the braziers leapt twice as high. Benerro greeted her with courtesies and half-bows. Maeryn merely inclined his head, his gaze wary. "She will look at our chosen," Benerro said later, in the privacy of an antechamber. Jaehaer listened from the shadows, unseen. Asshai's fires burn deeper. If there are truths in him that ours cannot see, hers might. Maeryn's reply was too soft for Jaehaer to catch. Now he sat cross-legged before her in a smaller ritual chamber, the stone walls close, the air heavy with incense. The brazier between them burned low, coals glowing, a thin tongue of flame licking upward. In front of him rested a bronze bowl filled with shards of black glass. Dragonglass, Elyra had called it, obsidian from lands where the earth still bled molten fire. They had set the bowl over the coals until the glass was warm enough to glow faintly, not from its own heat, but from some reflection of the fire below. "Look," Elyra said. Her voice was soft but held the same steel edge as a knife honed many times. "Not at the flame, at the glass." Jaehaer frowned. "We always look into the fire," he said. "Not the things it touches. Benerro says that's the first lesson." "Benerro," she said with the faintest curl of her lip, "has never walked the streets of Asshai. He has never seen what swims in the black river there, or what moves behind the lanterns in the houses of shadow. Fire only shows one face of the truth. Sometimes it is too bright. The glass will catch what it does not wish us to see." He hesitated. Then, curiosity prickling at him, he leaned forward and fixed his gaze on the shards. They were irregular, jagged, their edges dulled by heat. Within their depths, the reflected flame seemed to twist. For a heartbeat, the image blurred, doubled. He saw his own face, pale and intent, superimposed over snow. Again, always the snow, but deeper now, layered beneath the familiar vision of the wall and the running wolves. He saw figures moving through the storm. Tall, thin men with blue eyes that burned like ice. They carried swords that glimmered with a light colder than moonlight. Wherever they walked, the snow beneath their feet hardened into something more like glass. His breath hitched. Elyra's gaze sharpened. "Tell me," she said. "Cold," he whispered. "A cold that hates. Men, no, not men. Things shaped like men. They walk with death." "Yes," she murmured. "What else?" The image shifted. He saw himself standing upon the wall, hair whipped by icy wind, a sword blazing in his hand, its light pushing the darkness back. A shadow moved behind him, vast, winged, roaring defiance to the frozen sky. The simple carving of a wolf's head hung at his throat. The vision slammed into him with such force he jerked back. The bowl rattled, glass shards chiming against bronze. The flame leapt higher, then subsided, whispering. He was breathing hard. Sweat beaded at his temples despite the room's modest heat. Elyra watched him without blinking. "You saw them," she said. "The others. The cold things from beyond the end of the world. And you saw yourself against them." Jaehaer swallowed. His mouth felt dry, sour with fear. Prophecy is a dangerous thing, Maeryn had once warned him. It is a door that swings both ways. Look too long, and something may look back. What am I? He asked, the question torn from him. Why do I see these things? Why does every path lead me to them? Elyra tilted her head. Because you are where the paths cross, she said. Ice and fire both. The flames around you do not know whether to consume you or cling to you, so they show you everything, hoping you will choose for them. He stared at her. Choose what? Whether you will be their sword, she said, or their shield. Not all visions were of distant doom. Some were as close and immediate as a girl's scream in the night. The fire that fed the great temple was hungry. It demanded offerings, not only of animals and grain but of fear and pain. The red faith of Volantis prided itself on being more refined than the savage pyres of certain eastern cults. But there were dark corners where the lines blurred. Her name was Lysa, a waif from the riverfront whose parents had given her to the temple rather than feed another mouth. She was small for her 10 years, with hair the color of straw and eyes too large for her thin face. She had followed Jaehaer like a shadow for weeks, curious about the older novice who walked through fire without screaming. You don't flinch, she had said once, watching him tend a brazier. Even when the sparks jump. I want to be like that. Now her hands were raw and blistered. The skin cracked where she had tried to prove her courage by holding them over a lesser altar's flame for too long. The priest overseeing the rite had turned away to consult a scroll, leaving her to whimper softly in the corner of the chamber. Jaehaer found her there, curled in on herself, tears carving tracks through soot on her cheeks. Let me see, he said gently, kneeling. She tried to hide her hands, shame flashing across her face. I failed, she whispered. The Lord of Light will not want me now. He'll let the darkness take me. He took her wrists gently but firmly, drawing her hands into the light. The burns were ugly, angry red and beginning to blister, but not yet infected. He felt anger stir in his chest, hot and unwelcome, directed as much at himself as at the unseen priest who had allowed this. The Lord of Light is not so small that he throws away a child for crying out in pain, he said. If he were, he would not be worth worshipping. Lysa blinked at him, eyes wide. You shouldn't say that, she whispered. They'll cut out your tongue. Then they will have one fewer voice to chant their prayers, he murmured. Hold still. He dipped a cloth in the basin of cool water by the wall and pressed it gently to her palms. She hissed, but the relief was immediate. He worked slowly, meticulously, cleaning soot and ash from the damaged skin. Heat pulsed from the burns against his fingers, mingling with the ever-present warmth of the temple. You walked the embers, she said after a moment. They say you didn't burn. They say you're the chosen one. He grimaced. They say many things, he replied, most of them about people who cannot answer back. But you saw me, she said. You came when I screamed. He paused, hands stilling. The truth was, he had not heard her at first. He had been on his way to another chamber to assist in a high rite when a sudden, inexplicable image had filled his mind. A small hand blistering, a face contorted in pain, the copper tang of burned flesh swallowed by incense. It had pulled at him like a physical tug. He had changed direction without thinking. I saw smoke where there should not have been any, he said carefully. Sometimes the fire shows me small things too. Lysa watched him, trusting. It was a heavy thing, that trust. He felt it settle on his shoulders like a new kind of cloak. In the doorway behind him, footsteps sounded. He rose smoothly, placing himself between Lysa and the approaching priest. His expression schooled into polite calm. The man frowned at the sight of them. She overreached, he said, as if discussing a tool that had cracked, not a child. If she cannot endure the flame, she will be put to work in the kitchens, or the ash pits. She endured enough for today, Jaehaer replied before he could stop himself. Her hands will heal stronger if they are not burned to the bone. The priest's brows drew together. You presume to instruct those above you, boy? Jaehaer met his gaze. I presume only that the Lord of Light has more use for hands that can still hold a broom or a ladle than for charred stumps, he said evenly. The man's lips thinned. For a heartbeat, Jaehaer thought he would be struck. But then the priest snorted. "Very well, little favored Ember," he said mockingly. "Tend your pet. But remember, flame without obedience is wild. And wildfires are more often stamped out than worshipped." He turned and left, robes snapping. Lysa exhaled shakily. "He hates you," she murmured. "Perhaps," Jaehaer said. "Perhaps not. It doesn't matter." He picked up the cloth again. "Hold still. This will sting, but only for a moment." As he worked, he felt the faintest tingle in his fingertips, as if some part of the heat he had always carried flowed outward, knitting something together. It might have been his imagination. Yet when he finished, the blisters looked less angry, the swelling already easing. Lysa flexed her fingers. "It doesn't hurt as much," she said in wonder. Jaehaer sat back on his heels, unsure whether to feel grateful or afraid. If the fire within him could burn without consuming, if it could heal as well as harm, what else might it be asked to do? That night, sleep took him like a thief, sudden and complete. One moment he was staring at the low ceiling of his cell, listening to the distant murmur of chants and the crackle of torches in the hall. The next, the world had fallen away. He found himself standing on black stone. The ground beneath his bare feet was smooth and glassy, yet pitted, as if bubbles had once boiled within it and hardened mid-burst. Faint heat seeped up from below, not enough to burn, just enough to remind him that this place had once been molten. The sky overhead was a roiling curtain of smoke, tinged red where some distant glow backlit it. Ash fell silently, dusting his hair and shoulders, clinging to his lashes. In the distance, broken towers stabbed upward at odd angles, some leaning against each other like drunks, others snapped clean in half. Valyria, he thought, though no one had spoken the word. He began to walk. The ruins loomed around him, silent and vast. Strange symbols had been carved into some of the stones, their sharp lines softened now by time and fire. He passed what might once have been a plaza, its center dominated by a fractured statue of a dragon, its head missing, its tail coiled around nothing. Everywhere there were bones, not of men, those too, perhaps, powdered into the dust he breathed, but of beasts. Great curved ribs arched from the rubble. Half-buried skulls grinned up at him with rows of serrated teeth. Some were small enough that he could imagine them flying once. Others were so large that he could have walked into their mouths standing upright. No sound marked his passage but the soft scrape of his own feet. The air smelled of old smoke and something metallic, like blood long dried. He knew, with the certainty one sometimes has in dreams, that he was searching for something. Or someone. He found it at the heart of the ruins. The courtyard was ringed by pillars of fused stone, their tops melted and sagging as if some great fire had licked them soft. At its center lay a shape so immense it took him a moment to understand what he was seeing. A dragon. It dwarfed the skeletons he had stepped over, alive where they were dead. Its body was coiled upon itself. A mountain of black scales shot through with faint, glowing veins of red, like magma beneath obsidian. Its wings were folded close, the leathery membranes cracked in places but whole. Its head rested on its forelegs, turned slightly to one side, eyes closed. It seemed carved from the ruins, an artful sculpture laid among broken pillars. Then he saw the slow, steady rise and fall of its flank. "Wake!" he heard himself say. The dragon's eyes snapped open. They were not molten gold like the one in his earlier vision, nor pale blue like the things beyond the wall. They were a deep, impossible crimson, shot through with threads of darker shadow. They fixed on him, unblinking, and in that gaze he felt heat and hunger and an intellect older than any kingdom he knew. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The ash continued to fall, a soft, constant veil between them. Then, slowly, the dragon uncoiled. Stone cracked under its weight as it rose, towering above him. Its wings unfurled with a sound like a sail catching a storm wind. The gust knocked him to one knee. He threw up an arm to shield his face, hair whipping around him. A growl rolled through the courtyard, low and deep, rattling his bones. The dragon's head snaked down, stopping a bare arm's length from him. Its breath was hot and sulphurous, tinged with a sweetness he could not place. Up close, he could see that its scales were not smooth. Tiny ridges and patterns traced across them, like runes etched in stone. The dragon's pupils narrowed. It inhaled once, a sharp, testing breath, as if catching his scent. Images slammed into his mind. Not his own, but the dragon's. Cities rising in gleaming white stone, then blackening under clouds of ash. Men in tall helmets bending knee to dragon lords whose eyes glowed with the reflection of volcanic fire. Chains breaking, wings beating against a sky split by lightning. The doom itself, fire and earth and sky tearing apart, swallowing everything. Amidst it all, one constant. The dragon's own survival, a stubborn, furious clinging to life against a world that wanted it gone. Jaehaer staggered under the weight of that knowing. His knees hit the stone fully, his hands splayed, fingers scraping rough surfaces. The dragon's muzzle came closer still, until its eye was all he could see. In its depths he saw something that made his breath catch. Not just heat and wrath, but loneliness. A terrible, grinding solitude, stretched over years beyond counting. "You are alone," he whispered. The dragon blinked slowly. A ripple ran down its body, like a shudder. Heat flared around him, not burning, simply present, wrapping him in a mantle of warmth. He realized, distantly, that he was no longer breathing ash. The air around him was clean now, though the ruins had not changed. A voice spoke then, not in words, but in a feeling that translated itself somewhere between his heart and his mind. A question, a challenge, a recognition. "You." He did not know whether it named him or accused him or welcomed him, only that it bound itself around his bones like steel. He reached out, hand trembling, and laid his palm against the dragon's snout. Fire roared through him, not hot, not painful, but overwhelming. For an instant, his sense of self blurred. He was boy and beast, scale and skin, wing and hand. He saw snow and ice in the wall, but this time from above, from the sky, as if he flew over it on titanic wings. He woke with a gasp, sitting bolt upright on his narrow cot, chest heaving. The moonlight through the narrow slit of his window showed his hands clearly. A faint pattern, darker than his skin but lighter than soot, traced across his palm where he had touched the dragon, a suggestion of overlapping scales. It faded even as he watched, leaving only bare flesh, but the memory remained, of a dragon sleeping in the bones of a dead empire, of crimson eyes opening, of recognition passing between them like shared breath. Jaehaer swung his legs over the side of the cot and sat there, sweating in the cool night, listening to the distant, steady roar of the temple's great fires. Somewhere far to the west, beyond seas and storms and the curve of the world, a wall of ice waited. Somewhere far to the east, beyond shadows and ash and the ruins of men's arrogance, a dragon slept. Between them, he sat in a stone cell, heart beating too fast for such stillness, and understood that the path he walked would not end in Volantis. The city below them seethed with life and fire. Volantis never truly slept. Even in the depths of night, torches bobbed along the riverfront, lanterns swayed from the prows of trading vessels, and the glow of forge and kitchen and brothel spilled out into narrow alleys. From this height, the sound of it all blurred into a constant murmur, a tide of voices and wheels and hooves undercut by the low, steady roar of the river. Jaehaer leaned on the black stone balustrade, hands resting on the warm surface. The stone always seemed to hold the day's heat, as if it, too, drank the sun. His eyes traced the serpentine curve of the Rhoyne as it slid past the temple's shadow, reflecting scattered stars. Far beyond the city walls, the horizon was a deeper dark, broken only by a faint red smear where some distant volcano breathed. "You are awake late," Elyra said beside him. He had not heard her step onto the balcony, but he was no longer surprised by that. She moved with the soft assurance of someone who expected shadows to part for her. The copper of her hair glinted in the torchlight, though most of it was hidden beneath her hood. "Sleep is uneasy," he admitted. "The dreams grow more vivid." "Of the cold ones?" she asked. "Of the wall and the wolves?" "Those too." His fingers tightened on the stone. "But more often now of the dragon, the one in the ruins. I can feel the heat of its breath even when I wake." Elyra stepped closer, her gaze following his out over the city. "Dreams are embers," she said. "Left untended, they burn out. Fed with wood and wind, they become something else." He glanced at her. "You think the dreams are not merely visions, then? You think they are invitations?" A faint smile ghosted across her lips. "You have sharp eyes, boy. I am nearly a man," he said automatically, then flushed at his own petulance. "That you are nearly a man makes you no less a boy to things as old as the dragon in your dreams," she said, "or to the powers that watch it. But your instincts are not wrong. The fire does not show you Valyria again and again for idle amusement. Benerro says the flames show us what is useful for the faith," he said slowly. "He believes I will be their greatest weapon." "And what do you believe?" Elyra asked. Jaehaer watched a barge drift under the shadow of the black wall, its lantern swinging. In the distance, a red comet, no, only a spark from some unseen forge, streaked briefly across the sky and died. "I believe a weapon is still only a tool," he said. "The hand that wields it matters more than the steel." "And you fear the hand that will wield you," she said. He did not deny it. It was not only the visions of cold and dragonfire that haunted him now. It was the way the high priest's gaze lingered when he spoke of prophecy. The way some of the younger priests watched him with reverence, and others with thinly veiled calculation. The way Maeryn's shoulders seemed to droop a little more each year, as if he carried a burden he had not anticipated when he first brought an infant across the sea. "The dragon is not of R'hllra's making," Elyra said softly. "Nor is the wall. These are older things born of earth and time and blood. Your path runs between them, not solely through the fire. Remember that." He frowned. "Why do you tell me this? You serve the same God they do." "I serve the truth the flames show me," she replied. "Sometimes that truth cuts across the desires of priests and kings alike. One day you may have to choose whether to obey the faith that raised you or the vision that calls you. I would rather you be ready for that choice than blind to it." Below, a sudden shout rose from one of the keys. Anger or laughter, it was hard to tell. The sound faded into the general murmur. "What if I refuse?" he asked quietly. "What if I decide the fire has asked enough of me?" Elyra's eyes reflected the torchlight. Pale irises ringed in orange. "Then the world may freeze," she said simply. "And all this," she gestured to the city, the river, the temple, "will mean nothing. Sometimes, child of ice and fire, there is no gentle road. Only the one that hurts to walk, and the one that ends in darkness for everyone." He swallowed. The wind tugged at his robe, carrying the smell of river mud and distant rain. Somewhere, a bell tolled. "Valyria," he said. The word tasted like ash and lightning. "I need to see if it is truly there, if the dragon is more than a dream." "Yes," Elyra said. "You do." The council chamber beneath the great idol was smaller than the main hall but more oppressive. Here the ceilings pressed lower, and the braziers were set closer together, their flames licking at the carved beams overhead. The air smelled of old parchment and wax, of men who had spent too many nights arguing over scripture and strategy. A map stretched across the central table, pinned at the corners by polished stones. It showed the eastern half of the world as the Volantines liked to see it. Their city inked in bold strokes, other lands fading in importance the farther they lay from the Rhoyne's mouth. The smoking sea was rendered as a swirling mass of black and red, its islands sketched vaguely, like broken teeth. Benerro stood at the head of the table, one hand resting lightly on the map. The gold thread in his robe caught the firelight, making the embroidered flames along the hem seem to move. His beard was oiled and neatly braided, his expression composed. Across from him, Maeryn looked almost drab by comparison. His robe was plain, its once bright dye faded by years of heat and washing. New lines had etched themselves around his mouth and eyes, and the emberstone at his throat glowed only faintly. Jaehaer stood between them, feeling the weight of their attention like twin brands. "You have been called to a great task, Jaehaer," Benerro said. His voice filled the chamber with practiced resonance. "The flames have shown us much, but they return again and again to the same image. You walking amid the ruins of the Dragon Lords, your shadow falling across slumbering fire." Jaehaer's gaze flicked to the map. Someone had drawn a small symbol near the center of the smoking sea. A circle enclosing a spiral, like a coiled serpent. His chest tightened. "You wish me to sail to Valyria," he said. Maeryn shifted as if to speak, but Benerro lifted a hand, and the older priest fell silent. "We wish you to follow where the Lord of Light leads you," Benerro replied. "The dragon you dream of is no idle fancy. If such a creature still draws breath, if any remnant of Valyria's power remains, we must know. In the coming war against the darkness from the north, every source of flame will matter. And if the dragon kills me?" Jaehaer asked, surprising himself with the bluntness of the question. "If I die before I ever see this wall you speak of?" Benerro's eyes narrowed, but his smile did not slip. "If the Lord of Light wished you to die nameless in some forgotten ruin, he would not have brought you to us," he said, "nor shown us your victories against the cold men in the fires. Faith, Jaehaer, you have walked on coals and come away unburned. You have seen further than any novice in a generation. Do you doubt that the same hand which spared your feet will guide your path?" He did doubt. He doubted it every time he saw the scars on other boys' bodies, the burns that had not miraculously closed, the eyes blinded by staring too long into the wrong flame. He doubted it when he remembered Lysa's whimpers. Lawler was not gentle. The god of fire loved sacrifice, loved edges and extremes. Maeryn cleared his throat softly. "Faith does not forbid prudence," he said. "The smoking sea is treacherous. Many ships that skirt its edges vanish without trace. We would need a captain who knows the safer currents. Men willing to sail that close to death. Men willing to serve the greatest cause in the world," Benerro corrected. "They will not be hard to find. The promise of glory is a better lure than gold." His gaze returned to Jaehaer. "You are hesitant." Jaehaer met his eyes. "I am cautious," he said. "The visions are not clear. I see heat and ash and the dragon, yes, but also collapse and screaming. I cannot tell if I live through it." Benerro's shoulders shifted, a shrug or the ghost of one. "No man sees his own end clearly," he said. "Not even Baelor the Blessed, for all his fasting. We are all candles. Some burn brighter and shorter, some longer and dimmer. Your flame is not meant to gutter in a temple. It is meant to blaze in the world. You are Azor Ahai reborn, or the forerunner of his coming. Either way, Valyria is your road." The title made Jaehaer's skin crawl. Azor Ahai, the promised prince. The savior who had forged a sword in his wife's heart. The priests loved to tell that story. They never lingered long on the woman's scream. Maeryn's gaze met his briefly, and in it Jaehaer saw something like apology. "If I refuse?" Jaehaer said quietly. "Then you refuse the destiny the Lord of Light has set before you," Benerro replied, no warmth in his tone now. "The flames will choose another, and your own fire will wane. You will spend the rest of your days tending lesser braziers, wondering what might have been if you had stepped into the heat when it called." The words landed heavy. The thought of shrinking himself to fit some smaller life, of ignoring the pull that had haunted his dreams since childhood, made his chest ache in a different way than fear did. Jaehaer looked down at the map again. The little spiral symbol seemed to writhe, as if something moved beneath the parchment. He thought of the wall, of blue eyes in a storm, of Lysa's burned hands, and the way the pain had ebbed when he touched them, of the dragon's crimson gaze and the crushing loneliness he had felt through it. "I will go," he said. Benerro smiled, teeth flashing in the firelight. "Good," he said. "Then the first step of your true path begins. We will prepare the ship." The ship's timbers creaked like old bones as it eased away from the quay. Ropes slapped, men shouted, gulls cried overhead. The air smelled of tar and fish and river mud, overlaying the ever-present hint of incense that clung to the Red Priest's robes. Jaehaer stood at the bow, fingers curled around the salt-sticky railing. The current tugged them toward the sea, the great river swelling and narrowing as they passed under stone bridges. Above, the colossal black wall loomed, its ancient stones absorbing the morning light. The great red temple watched their passage from its height, its massive statues' outstretched arms seeming to point toward the east. Smoke rose from its many chimneys, a faint smudge against the brightening sky. "First time leaving the city?" the ship's captain asked, coming to stand beside him. Danyos was a hard-faced man with sun-cracked skin and a scar that ran from his temple into his hair. A small iron charm of a leaping fish hung round his neck, worn smooth by thumb and years. "First time on the water," Jaehaer admitted. Danyos grunted. "Best to learn on a short voyage," he said. "If R'hllor wills it, you can get your sea legs before we're too far from land." Jaehaer looked at the man sidelong. "You are not of the faith," he said, "yet you sail under their command." "I am of the sea," Danyos replied. "It takes coin from priests as readily as from merchants. And if the Lord of Light wishes to keep me alive a little longer, I will not argue with him." Behind them, Elyra moved among the small contingent of red priests and acolytes chosen for this voyage, checking straps and satchels. Maeryn stood slightly apart, one hand resting on the rail, eyes distant. He had insisted on coming, despite Benerro's initial resistance. "You brought him here," the high priest had said. "If he is to walk into fire, it is only fitting you watch him do it." Now Maeryn's gaze found Jaehaer, and he gestured silently. Jaehaer excused himself from Danyos and crossed the deck. "You are not afraid," Maeryn observed. Jaehaer glanced back at the receding city. "I am," he said, "but not of the water." Maeryn's lips twitched. "Then you have more sense than half the priests on this deck." They stood in silence for a moment as the last of Volantis slipped past. The outermost shacks, the muddy banks where children waved, the final watchtower marking the river's mouth. Beyond it lay open water, the summer sea stretching glittering and vast under the sun. "You never told me," Jaehaer said quietly, "why you took me from wherever I was born, before Volantis." Maeryn's jaw tightened. "The flames showed me a tower," he said. "Blood on stone, a child screaming, a woman dying. I followed those visions as far west as my feet and coin would carry me. When I found you, there were already swords bloody with good men's lives in the yard." Images flickered in Jaehaer's mind, brief, senseless impressions that had haunted his earliest years. A cold hand on his cheek, a man's voice promising something, the scent of crushed flowers. "The woman," he said. "My mother. She was dying," Maeryn said. "You would have died with her, in truth, if the wrong eyes had found you. Even had you lived, you would have been a pawn in games not of your choosing. A dagger pressed to a king's throat, or a torch to be snuffed out when convenient. Instead, I became a torch of your choosing," Jaehaer said, bitterness slipping into his tone. Maeryn did not flinch. "Perhaps," he said, "but I held you in my arms and felt the heat of you, even then. The flames whispered of walls and winter and things that should not walk. I believed, and still believe, that giving you to the temple saved more than just your own life. It gave the world a chance." The ship rocked gently as it met the swell of the open sea. Jaehaer braced his feet, adjusting to the new motion. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Taking me from that tower?" Maeryn's eyes, for a moment, were very old. "Every time you are made to suffer for what you are," he said. "Every time the priests speak of sacrifice as if it were a coin to be counted. And yet, when I look into the flames and see what comes from the north, I regret more that there might be a world where you were never born at all." Jaehaer looked out over the glittering expanse of water. "The dreams will not let me ignore it," he said. "The wall, the dragon, whatever waits in the shadows between them. I would have sought this road even without Benerro's blessing." "I know," Maeryn said. "That is what frightens me." The wind freshened, snapping the sails taut. The ship surged forward. Behind them, Volantis shrank to a smudge on the horizon. Ahead, the sea reached toward a faint haze of smoke where the world, once, had torn itself apart. The water darkened as they sailed east. The blue-green shimmer of the summer sea gave way to a murkier hue, as if the depths beneath had been stained with ash. The sky, too, changed. Clouds thickened, clumping low and gray, and the sun became a pallid disk behind them. The smell came next. It was not the simple, honest stink of fish and salt he had grown used to. It was heavier, fouler, a blend of sulfur and burnt stone, tinged with something metallic and acrid that made the back of his throat prickle. The sailors began to mutter long before the first wisps of steam appeared on the horizon. "Smoking sea," Daniel said grimly, squinting forward. "We are near enough now that even fools can smell it." Jaehaer stood at the rail, cloak whipping around his legs, and watched as the world ahead blurred. A low-lying fog clung to the water, shot through in places with faint, red-orange glows where hot springs or vents broke the surface. The sea itself seemed to boil in patches. Pale bubbles rose and burst without sound. Some of the crew made quick signs with their fingers, warding against evil. Others muttered prayers to whatever god held their favor. R'hllor, the Seven, Mother Roin. One grizzled oarsman simply spat over the side and gripped his amulet tighter. On the quarterdeck, Elyra and the other priests clustered around a brazier bolted to the planks. Its flame burned steadily despite the damp air, the coals bright. Elyra's lips moved, shaping words Jaehaer could not hear over the hiss of steam and the faint groan of the hull. "Do we sail through it?" he asked Danios. The captain snorted. "Through that." He gestured at the fog, where shapes seemed to form and dissolve. "Only men with death wishes sail into the heart of the smoking sea. Pockets of air that'll kill you where you stand. Currents that drag a ship down as if some giant hand had hold of its keel. We skirt the edge. Close enough to see your ruins, priest, but not close enough to join them." "The dragon is not at the edge," Jaehaer said. "In my dreams, I walk deep among the ruins." Danios shrugged. "Then pray your god has a long reach." As they pressed on, the sea grew more treacherous. Tendrils of fog curled over the bow, beating on skin and cloth, leaving a faint, greasy residue. The air grew warmer, humid despite the lack of sun. Every so often, a dull boom rolled across the water, as if some distant giant had belched. Maeryn joined Jaehaer at the rail, his expression tight. "Stay away from the lowest decks," he advised. "Gases heavier than air can pool there. Men have gone below in seas like this and never come back up." Jaehaer nodded, eyes fixed on the hazy horizon. Shapes lurked there, shadowy lumps that might be islands or simply tricks of steam and light. The dragon's memory pressed at him, a restless presence at the back of his mind. "Do you feel it?" he asked quietly. "The wrongness." Maeryn hesitated. "Yes," he admitted. "This is a place where the veil between what is and what should never have been grew thin. The doom was not only fire and stone. It twisted the earth itself. The fire here does not feel like R'hllor," Jaehaer said. "It feels wild." "That is because it was never meant to be caged in temples," Maeryn replied. "The Lord of Light is not the only power that loves flame." The ship shuddered as it passed over a patch of warmer water. Steam rose around the hull, momentarily blinding them. For an instant, the world narrowed to damp whiteness and the glow of the brazier on deck. Then the fog thinned just enough to reveal a jagged silhouette on the horizon. A broken spine of rock rearing from the sea, its edges softened by distance and ash. "There," Elyra said, pointing. "Do you see it, Jaehaer?" He narrowed his eyes. The shape resolved into a series of crumbling towers and fused arches, perched on a mass of black stone that jutted from the water at a sharp angle. A faint red glow pulsed somewhere within its depths. "Yes," he breathed, his heart hammered, not entirely with fear. "I see it." "Then we have reached the door to your fate," Elyra said. "The rest, you must open yourself." They anchored as close as Danyos dared, the ship's hull groaning as it nudged against a relatively calm patch of water. The island, if it could be called that, rose from the sea like the broken tooth of some colossal beast, its sides sheer in places, jagged in others. Sloping shelves of black stone offered footholds, but they were slick with moisture and treacherous. "2 boats," Danyos said. "No more. If the current shifts, I want enough hands aboard to get us clear." Elyra, Maeryn, and 3 other priests formed the core of the landing party. Jaehaer joined them without being asked. His decision made the moment the outline of the ruins had appeared through the mist. Danyos added 4 sailors with strong backs and a grudging acceptance of their fate. The boat's hull slapped the water as they lowered it. Jaehaer climbed down the rope ladder, feeling the cool dampness of the fog settle on his skin. The sea here was oddly buoyant, holding the boat higher than he expected. Yet the oars cut through it with a sticky resistance that made his shoulders ache. As they approached the island, the stench of sulfur grew stronger. Thin plumes of steam rose from cracks in the stone, some hissing softly, others silent. The water at the base of the rocks bubbled in places, though no heat radiated from it that he could feel. They found a narrow ledge where the stone sloped gently enough to allow a landing. The sailors scrambled out first, hauling ropes up and securing them around protrusions in the rock. Jaehaer followed, boots skidding slightly. The stone underfoot was unlike any he had touched before. It was not rough like common rock. It felt almost melted, its surface smoothed and rippled as if someone had poured it in a molten state and let it cool too quickly. In places, his feet tingled with warmth. In others, the chill of the sea seeped through. "Careful," Maeryn warned. "Some of these vents are still active. Step in the wrong place and you'll cook your flesh before you feel the heat." Encouraging, Jaehaer thought grimly. They climbed. The path wound upward through the ruins of what had once been a grand road. Broken columns lay half-buried in ash and stone, their carved surfaces obscured. Now and then, a fragment of relief work emerged. A dragon's wing etched in startling detail, a stylized flame, a human figure with arms uplifted. The details had not softened in all the centuries since the Doom. Whatever artisans had worked here had known their craft. The air grew thicker as they ascended. The fog thinned, but the smell of burnt stone intensified. The distant booms they had heard from the ship were louder now, undercut by a faint, constant rumble that Jaehaer felt more in his bones than in his ears. "Look," one of the sailors breathed. Jaehaer followed his pointing hand. On a nearby chunk of fallen masonry, something grew. A crust of gray-white, flaking in patches. At first he thought it some kind of lichen, but as he stepped closer, he recognized the telltale texture. Stone men, he thought, skin crawling. Greyscale's legacy, the disease that turned flesh to stone slowly and inexorably, eating away at mind and self as it spread. The tales said it had run rampant in the aftermath of the Doom, twisting survivors into shambling shadows of themselves. "Do not touch anything that looks like that," Elyra said sharply, confirming his suspicion. "Even if it is only on the stone. The plague here mutates. It remembers what it did to men." The sailors made warding signs again, more fervent this time. One spat into the ash. They pressed on. Higher up, the ruins opened into a broad terrace that looked out over the sea. From here, Jaehaer could see the ship below, a fragile toy bobbing on the dark water. The sight of it made his stomach knot. There was so far still to fall. At the far end of the terrace, partially collapsed and leaning at a perilous angle, stood a structure that made his heart stutter. It was a ziggurat much like the one in his dream, its lower levels intact, its upper tiers fractured. Black stone steps led up to a shadowed entrance. The pillars flanking that doorway were carved with spiraling patterns he recognized without having ever seen. the same runes that had traced across the dragon's scales when he touched it in his dreaming. "This is it," he said, voice coming out hoarse. "The place from my vision." Maeryn's jaw tightened. Elyra's lips moved soundlessly, as if reciting some private litany. "We go down," Elyra said, "into the heart." The air inside the ziggurat was different. Outside, it had been heavy with sulfur and smoke, the constant mutter of the sea and the rumble beneath the earth. Here, the sounds dimmed, muffled by thick stone and the weight of centuries. The torch in Jaehaer's hand cast a pool of flickering orange light that slid over walls carved in bas-relief. Dragons coiled along the stone, their scaled bodies entwined. Human figures walked among them, robed and helmed, their faces worn smooth by time but their postures unmistakably proud. Between them, runes twisted, sharp lines intersecting, spirals and eyes and stylized flames. They tugged at his attention, demanding to be read. His eyes skimmed them, and to his surprise, fragments made sense. "Blood is fire," one sigil sequence declared. "Fire is power. Power is duty." Another, "Chains break in the hottest flame." "Can you read them?" Maeryn asked softly. "Some," Jaehaer replied. "Not all. It's as if I remember a song half forgotten." "Your blood remembers," Elyra said behind him. "Old Valyria does not easily let go of those who carry its mark." The staircase spiraled downward, narrower as it went. The stone underfoot grew warmer, not uncomfortably, but enough that Jaehaer's soles began to sweat. The air turned thick and humid, beads of moisture forming on his skin. At the base of the stairs, the passage opened into a cavernous chamber. He stopped at the threshold, breath catching in his throat. In the center of the space lay a shape like a hill of black glass. It filled most of the room, its surface faceted and smooth, catching the torchlight in strange ways. Within its depths, faint veins of red glimmered, pulsing slowly, like embers banked beneath ash. The dragon, even encased in obsidian, its outline was unmistakable. The curve of its back, the arch of its wings folded close, the long sweep of its neck. The crystalline substance that held it was not perfectly clear. It distorted and blurred edges. But he could see enough to know. His heart hammered. "You have seen this before," Elyra said, her voice hushed. "In my dreams," he whispered. His mind flashed back to the sensation of scales under his palm, the rush of shared memory, the crushing loneliness. But there was no glass then. It lay open to the air. "Dreams show truth, not always form," Elyra replied. "The dragon's essence, not its prison." Maeryn approached the obsidian mound cautiously, hand outstretched but not quite touching. "This is no natural formation," he murmured. "No simple lava flow. Someone entombed it here, bound it." "Can you feel it?" Jaehaer asked. "The presence." Maeryn closed his eyes briefly, then shook his head. "The stone mutters," he said, "but I do not hear a voice, only echoes." Jaehaer stepped closer. Heat radiated from the obsidian, gentle but constant. The veins of red within it brightened as he approached, responding to something in him. He swallowed. "In the dream, it woke when I touched it." "Dreams are not always to be imitated," Maeryn warned. "The fire did not bring us all this way to let us stand and stare," Elyra said. "Touch it, Jaehaer." He hesitated, not because he doubted the need to do so, but because he feared what might come after. If the dragon woke, what then? What use would it make of him? What use would the priests? Yet the dragon's remembered loneliness pulsed at him, a deep, aching echo. The wall's image rose in his mind, cold, unyielding, waiting. Between them, a thread stretched taut. He reached out. His fingers brushed the obsidian. It was hot, hotter than it had seemed from a distance, but it did not burn him. Instead, the heat flowed into him, up his arm, flooding his chest. For a heartbeat, his breath stopped. The veins of red flared bright, turning the glass into a lamp from within. The whole mound seemed to tremble, a subtle vibration that set dust drifting from the high ceiling. "Back!" Maeryn shouted to the others. The sailors stumbled, eyes wide, as they scrambled toward the walls. Jaehaer could not move. The stone held him as surely as if his hand had fused to it. In his mind, an eye opened. Not the memory of one. The real thing. "You again," the sense came, layered in feeling more than language. Little spark. It had not forgotten him. "Wake," he whispered, though his lips barely moved. "Wake. The world is colder than you remember." The chamber exploded with light. Not fire, not exactly. No flame leapt from the braziers. The illumination came from within the obsidian itself, from the veins that had pulsed faintly before. They flared brilliant, flooding the room with reddish-gold radiance that turned stone to molten shadow. Jaehaer's vision white-outed. For a dizzy instant, he no longer knew whether his eyes were open or closed. The heat enveloped him completely, but still it did not burn. It infused him, seeped into marrow and sinew and thought. He was standing on the ruins, yes, but also above them. Wings beat at his back. No, not his. The dragon's. A scream tore from a throat that was not his own, a note of fury and exultation. The smoking sea stretched beneath, pocked with boiling vents and half-submerged spires. The sky was black with ash and cloud. He saw the doom again, but differently now. Not as a boy peering into a brazier, but as the creature beneath the stone had seen it. Cities collapsing like kicked anthills, dragons tumbling from the sky engulfed in their own fire, rivers of lava carving new paths to the sea, mountains cracking open. Through it all, this dragon had flown, buffeted by shockwaves, scorched by the heat of its own kin's deaths. It had fled not cowardice, but survival, driven by an instinct older than any human oath. It had found this place, nestled among these pillars, and poured its fire inward, hardening its own blood into a shell of obsidian to shield it from the world's death throes. Sleep then, long and deep, while empires rose and fell above its stony cocoon, until something called it, until him. "You are small," the sense came, threaded with amusement and contempt and a grudging curiosity, and loud. "I am what I am," Jaehaer replied, though in this shared space he had no tongue. His sense of self was a point of heat in a vast, scaled consciousness. "The world is dying again, not by fire, by cold. I saw it in the flames. I saw it in you." Cold, the dragon tasted the word, puzzled. It remembered volcanic heat, storms of ash, molten rivers. Cold was absence, the memory of sky above the clouds, where air thinned and snow sometimes formed on its wings despite the furnace of its blood. He pushed images toward it, the wall, the shambling dead, the pale blue eyes. The way the warmth seemed to flee wherever they walked. The dragon recoiled instinctively, not in fear but in distaste. "They would take from you what is yours," he conveyed. "Heat, life, fire." The dragon's attention sharpened. At last, something that concerned it. "Why do you come, little spark?" it demanded. "Because I must," he answered. "Because the fire and the cold will tear the world apart between them, and I am caught in the middle." He showed it the temples, the braziers, the priests chanting. He showed it the wolves running through snow, the girl with burned hands, the boy walking coals unscarred. He showed it the sword in his visions, burning in his grasp. "You are not dragon," it observed. Something almost like disappointment tinged its thought. "Yet you carry flame that does not die. And another thing, ice," he said. "Blood that remembers snow." A rumble passed through the shared space. It was not laughter, but it was not entirely unlike it. Always too, the dragon mused. Fire and stone, wing and earth, now fire and ice. The world loves its balances. Above them or below, it was difficult to parse direction here. He sensed the faint echo of voices. Maeryn calling his name, Elyra's incantations, the sailors' frightened mutters. The physical chamber shook. Dust drifted. "I need you," he said simply. "The world needs you. Wake." The dragon's attention turned inward for a long moment, measuring. We are buried deep, it noted. Stone over bone. Time over memory. To wake is to break what has held. The earth will not like that. He felt the ziggurat around them, the cracks spiderwebbing through stone, the delicate equilibrium of pressure and heat that had settled over centuries. Waking the dragon fully would mean disrupting it. Perhaps collapsing this chamber over their heads. Perhaps worse. I cannot ask you to sleep while everything else burns or freezes, he said. If you stay here, you will outlive the world. You will fly over a graveyard and call it sky. For the first time, a thread of something like loneliness slid into the dragon's consciousness. It did not like what the doom had done to it, left it the last of its kind as far as it knew. It did not relish another epoch of isolation. Little spark, it said, and there was a strange warmth in it now. You are very loud. Then, with the inevitability of an avalanche, it began to move. In the physical world, the obsidian shell groaned. The first crack was small, just a hairline fracture radiating out from beneath Jaehaer's palm. It glowed brighter than the rest of the obsidian, a searing line of light. Then, like lightning branching through a storm cloud, more fractures spiderwebbed across the shell. The sound was like ice breaking under a heavy weight, like distant thunder. Stone dust rained from the vaulted ceiling. A chunk of masonry broke free near the far wall and crashed to the floor, sending shards skittering. Back! Maeryn shouted again, grabbing the nearest sailor by the collar and hauling him toward the stairs. Elyra seized another acolyte by the arm, dragging him out from under a shower of fragments. Jaehaer remained rooted in place. He could not tear his hand free. It felt as if his flesh had sunk through the glass, fused to whatever lay beneath. Heat surged, not gentle now, but fierce, eruptive. The veins of light between the cracks brightened until they were painful to look at. The shell bulged outward in places, pushed from within by something immense. The dragon unfurled, and the prison that had held it for centuries began to give way. In their shared space, the sensation was like being caught in the wake of a rising tide. Jaehaer felt himself buffeted, a tiny spark clinging to the surface of a star as it flared. You are too close, the dragon observed. Its attention flicked to him with something like annoyance. The breaking will crush you. Then don't crush me, he thought back fiercely. I'm the one who woke you. That earned him another of those almost laughs, a rumbling amusement that sent ripples through the molten core of the creature's awareness. Very well, little spark. In the physical chamber, the cracks converged, lines of stress intersecting. Segments of obsidian sheared off, crashing to the floor in great slabs that shattered into smaller shards. Steam hissed from the widening gaps, hot and wet. The dragon's muzzle pushed against the stone from within, immense and inexorable. Obsidian sloughed off like old skin. A wing unfurled, tearing through glass and dust, its membrane stretched and cracked but already knitting under the rush of fresh blood. The shockwave of its first true movement in centuries knocked everyone in the chamber off their feet. Everyone except Jaehaer. For him, the force seemed to pass around, not through, the space he occupied, as if the dragon had shaped its awakening around the small, insistent presence at its touch. Maeryn hit the floor hard, breath driven from his lungs. Elyra braced herself against a pillar, eyes narrowed against the light, lips moving in silent prayer. Or perhaps in a binding, it was hard to tell. The sailors scrambled, blind and coughing, their earlier bravado gone. One curled into a ball, hands over his head, muttering to any god who might be listening. The dragon roared. The sound was not merely heard. It was felt. Stone vibrated, dust billowed, and Jaehaer's bones sang with it. It carried rage and relief and a terrible joy at movement, at the simple act of stretching wings that had been still for too long. The last pieces of the obsidian shell shattered. Aelorion, the dragon thought, tasting its own name again in the world. It rolled off its awareness like a plume of fire. You may call me that little spark. The name seared itself into Jaehaer's mind. Aelorion, a word of storms and embers. His hand came free at last, fingers trembling. He stumbled back instinctively as a talon the size of his torso scraped the spot where he had just stood. The dragon shifted, coiling and uncoiling like a waking cat, its bulk far larger than the shell had suggested. Its scales were black, but not uniformly so. Thin threads of red veined them, glowing faintly as if lit from within. Its wings unfurled fully now, spanning nearly the width of the chamber. Their membranes stretched taut, scars of ancient stress faintly visible. Its eyes, those same deep crimson orbs shot with shadow, fixed on him. "You called," it said. "I woke. Now what?" Jaehaer drew in a shuddering breath. His legs felt like water, his vision still haloed with afterimages of red light. "Now," he said hoarsely, "we leave this tomb, and then we decide how to burn the darkness without burning the world with it." The chamber was no longer truly a chamber. With the obsidian shell gone and the dragon's bulk pressing against the walls, it felt more like the inside of a collapsing egg. Cracks scored the ceiling, some wide enough to let in thin blades of gray light from above. Pebbles rained down intermittently, heralds of larger chunks waiting their turn. "We must get out," Maeryn gasped, pushing himself upright. His voice came out ragged. "The roof will not hold." Elyra's eyes flicked between him and the dragon. "If we run blindly, we will die under falling stone," she said. "If we stay, we may die by fire. Choose quickly, Jaehaer." Jaehaer did not look away from Aelorion. The dragon crouched in an awkward, tense posture, compressed by the limiting geometry of the room. It could not stretch its neck fully without cracking more of the ceiling. Its wings were half-furled, claws digging into the stone floor. The urge to move, to burst upward into open air, pulsed from it like heat. "If I go," it conveyed, "the stone will fall. You are soft. You will break. Then do not let it fall on us." Jaehaer thought back, desperation lending his mental voice an edge. "You shaped your own prison. Shape its breaking." The dragon tilted its head, considering. It was not a creature of careful masonry. Its instincts ran more to smashing than to subtle reinforcement. Yet it understood rock, understood pressure, in the way a man understood the muscles of his own hand. It eyed the faults in the ceiling, the lines of stress. A low rumble built in its chest. "Stand close," it ordered. "To me." "Come," Jaehaer said aloud, gesturing sharply to Maeryn and Elyra. "Stay near its foreleg. Now." There was no time to argue. Elyra hauled a dazed sailor to his feet and shoved him toward Jaehaer, grabbing another by the scruff of his neck. Maeryn staggered forward, one arm over his head. They pressed against the dragon's flank, tiny shapes huddled against an avalanche. Aelorion lowered its head and exhaled. This was not dragonfire as in the tales of cities burned from the sky. There was no spear of flame roaring forth to incinerate armies. This was a controlled blast directed upward at specific points, where cracks converged, where stone had already begun to crumble. Hot air and flame struck those weaknesses like a chiseling hammer. The weakened rock disintegrated, turning to a storm of dust and smaller debris rather than massive, lethal slabs. Sunlight speared down through the new gaps, harsh and white. The dragon's wings snapped up, forming a partial canopy above the cluster of humans at its feet. Stone rattled off the scaled surfaces, harmless. Dust and grit rained over them, filling mouths and eyes, but no bones broke. With a final, decisive shove, Aelorion heaved itself upward. The remnants of the ceiling gave way under its force. Stone exploded outward, chunks tumbling down the sides of the ziggurat. From the terrace outside, it must have looked like the ruin was erupting. From within, it was like being inside a collapsing mountain. For Jaehaer, the sensation was overlaid with the dragon's own exultation. Movement, sky, the heavy weight of stone above finally gone. They burst into the open air in a storm of debris and flame. For a moment, Aelorion perched atop the shattered ziggurat, wings spread wide, silhouetted against the gray sky and the dull glow of the smoking sea. Its roar ripped through the vapor, scattering steam, sending birds, if any still lived here, screaming from their hiding places. On the terrace, The remaining sailors threw themselves flat, arms over their heads, as chunks of masonry rained down. The sight of the dragon, impossibly huge, impossibly real, froze them between terror and awe. Jaehaer clung to one of the dragon's foreleg ridges, coughing up dust. His hair was plastered to his forehead with sweat, his robe torn. Through watering eyes, he saw the ship bobbing below, the men on deck reduced to specks, some on their knees, some already at the rail, ready to cut anchor and flee. "Wait!" he croaked, though no one below could hear him. Aelorion heard. "These are yours?" the dragon inquired disdainfully. "Little boats, little men. They are the only way we leave this place," Jaehaer replied, "unless you mean to carry all of us in your claws." The dragon snorted, a plume of hot vapor curling from its nostrils. Perhaps. It shifted, testing its wings in the thicker air. Ash swirled around them, caught up in the downdraft. Below, the ship began to edge away from the island, sails half raised, as if caught between the desire to flee and the knowledge that leaving their priests behind might invite another kind of doom. "We will speak to them," Aelorion decided. "How?" Jaehaer began, but the answer was obvious. "We will fly." The muscles beneath him coiled. For a heartbeat, weight increased, pressing him down. Then the dragon launched itself from the ziggurat's crown. The first rush of air tore the breath from his lungs. Aelorion's wings hammered the sky, each downstroke a thunderclap. The force of their ascent pressed Jaehaer against the dragon's neck, fingers scrambling for purchase on the ridges between scales. The heat radiating from the creature's body was intense but not unbearable, like leaning close to a forge. The smoking sea shrank beneath them, its bubbling patches and steaming vents rendered suddenly small. The ziggurat's shattered crown was a black wound in the landscape, dust still rising from its ruptured belly. Wisps of fog tore away in their wake. Jaehaer risked a glance down. The ship looked tiny, a sliver of wood and canvas riding the sullen waves. Men clung to its rigging and rail, some pointing, some shielding their faces. Even from this height, he could sense their fear like a pall. "They have never seen one of us," Aelorion observed, a hint of grim pride in its mental tone. "Or if they have, it was from below as fire fell." "Then show them you are more than that," Jaehaer thought back, surprising himself. The wind snatched his words from his mouth, but the dragon heard them where speech did not matter. The dragon angled its wings, circling. The motion pressed Jaehaer sideways. He clung tighter, legs wrapped around the thick neck, aware in some distant corner of his mind that one slip could send him tumbling into the churning sea below. Aelorion descended in a wide, controlled spiral, not directly over the ship but near enough that its shadow passed across the deck. Sails flapped, and a chorus of shouts rose, some shrill with panic, others wordless, prayer or profanity. On the quarterdeck, Danyos stood at the wheel, knuckles white. Beside him, Elyra braced herself, her hood thrown back, hair whipped by the wind. Maeryn clutched the rail, eyes wide but steady. "Hold fast," Danyos bellowed. "If it wanted us dead, we'd be burning already." He was right. Aelorion could have reduced the ship to a charred skeleton in heartbeats. Instead, it glided alongside, matching pace with unnerving precision. Spray kicked up by the dragon's wing beats spattered the sailors' faces. Jaehaer cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, trusting that some of it would carry. "It's with us," he cried. "It woke because I called it. It will not burn you unless you give it cause." Some of the men stared up, mouths open. One dropped to his knees, muttering glory prayers so fast they tumbled over each other. "It wakes at the will of the Lord of Light," one of the lesser priests shouted, seizing the moment. "Behold his living flame." Jaehaer winced, but he had no breath to argue. He felt the dragon's faint annoyance ripple through him. Aelorion did not relish being called anyone's subordinate. But neither did it seem inclined to correct the error with immediate incineration. "You will need them," it said. "Their little boat, their little courage. Do not let them fall apart now." The dragon banked again, rising slightly, then hovered. If such a thing could be said of a creature that size. near enough that Jaehaer could see the whites of Danyos' eyes. "We are not staying here," Jaehaer shouted down. "The doom sleeps lightly, and we've woken one of its dreams. We sail west, back to Volantis. Then beyond." "Beyond," Danyos managed, voice strangled. "You mean back to your temple?" Jaehaer hesitated. The vision of the wall flashed behind his eyes, stark and cold and inexorable. Between that and the ship lay Volantis, with its priests and altars and Benerro's hungry gaze. "First to the temple," he conceded. "The dragon must be seen. The faith will not believe otherwise. Then I go where the fire and the cold demand." Elyra's eyes met his. In them he read understanding and caution. She knew as well as he what Benerro would try to make of this. "Very well," Danyos called, though his tone suggested he had little choice. "We'll take your monster as a passenger, if it doesn't take us for food." Aelorion snorted, a gust of hot air that sent men flinching. "Food," it conveyed dryly, "you are far too small." The dragon rose again, beating its wings once to gain height. Jaehaer's stomach lurched with emotion. The smoking sea spread out around them, a vast scar on the face of the world. Ahead, somewhere beyond the curtain of steam and ash, lay open water, and beyond that, cities and temples and walls of ice. Jaehaer pressed a hand to the rough scales beneath him. "We have woken," he said, voice ripped thin by the wind. "Now we see if the world is ready for that." Aelorion's answering roar rolled out over the smoking sea, defiant and wild, scattering fog and sending tremors through the air. It sounded, to Jaehaer's ears, like the beginning of an answer.